Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Nazir, Daf Nun Tes, and as well Daf Samech Amud Aleph, and then we'll pick up on the balance of Samech Amud Beis and Daf Samech Aleph on Shabbos. If my memory serves me right, Shabbos is at like 5:53 or something like that. Something like that. So Amir Hashem will to get that done. And then the next Shabbos is Shabbos Gadol Amir Hashem. So we're going to probably do Daf after the early Mincha because there's drushes for women, drushes for men. So just got to figure out the day, but I'll keep you all posted on that. Yeah. Today we're starting at the two dots, about 10 lines or so from the bottom of Nun Ches Amud Beis, discussing more about the halachos of shaving, although in this case shaving one's body. If you are a man, is it permissible to shave other parts of your body? Swimmers like to shave all the hair on their body because it gives them a little bit more smooth flowing in the water, a little bit less air retention on the follicles of hair. What are you, if you're a swimmer, can you shave your legs? If a person has a desire to shave their armpits, are they allowed to do that? Other parts of the body as well. That's going to be discussed in today's daf. Amar Rav, Mekel Adam Kol Gufo B'Sa'ar. It's pretty clear. A person is able to remove hair from their body even with a razor. I'm just going to say this now. We'll soon see that this doesn't mean a razor, even though it says razor. Don't be fooled, because the Gemara will qualify that that's impossible. It says the Gemara, Meisve, how can you say that? Hamavir beis hashechi uveis ha'erva hareza loke. A person who removes hair from their armpit, a man who removes hair from their armpit, that's the beis hashechi, uveis ha'erva, and the hair in the pubic region, hareza loke, they get malchus. It says the Gemara, no. That case where we're talking about the armpits and we're talking about the beis ha'erva, the pubic area, that's habesar, and habemisparaim. One of these cases is talking about with a razor. If a person removes armpit hair or pubic hair with a razor, that's Isser D'Oraisa. I said, the case of Rav was b'misparayim. Says the Gemara, I'm not sure. We'll get there. Says the Gemara, I'm not sure if you read Rav, but Rav didn't say misparayim. Rav said asar, said atar. But Rav nami b'tar ka'amar. Says the Gemara, Rav was just meant ke'ein tar. Now, I don't know, I'm not Rav, and I don't want to be like critical or anything, but you couldn't have found a better word to say what you wanted to say. Like, why does the Gemara do that? Like, why does it, maybe it was the social lingo, it was the way to talk, it's just confusing. The Gemara does clarify. I'm not saying the Gemara doesn't clarify, but I'm curious as to what was motivating Rav to use the language of razor. I'm curious, because that's not what he meant. A person can remove hair on their body as long as it's not a razor. Fine, mutter. And if a person removes hair from the beis hashechi or the beis ha'erva, and they do so with a razor, you're chayev malkos. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan, Hamavir beis hashechi beis ha'erva loka. We just learned the din that if a person removes hair from the beis hashechi or the beis ha'erva, from the armpits or from the pubic region, then they get malkos. Here it's actually quoted in the name of Rav Yochanan. It was previously mentioned in the name of a brisa, which means that he's quoting a brisa because he's an amora. You can't do that. Obviously, he's quoting from the brisa. Says the Gemara, wait 1 second. Meisvei avara seir enemi divrei Torah lemi divrei sofrim. We have a brisa that says that this removal of hair that we're discussing is only a din d'Rabbanan and not an Isser D'Oraisa. So what kind of malkos are you talking about? Malkos is only when a lav sheyesh bo maisa and a din d'Oraisa. It's very complicated to reach a level of malkos. But we don't have malkos properly as it relates to a din d'Rabbanan, and this seems like a din d'Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, you're absolutely right. My loke nami de ka'amar. When Rav Yochanan quotes this din and says loke, what was he talking about? He was talking about a din d'Rabbanan of malkos, not malkos proper, but what we call malkos mardus, something that would be. That's what the Rivan quotes on the very bottom line here. My loke de amre. That's makos mardus d'Rabbanan. So the Chachamim at times when a person would violate certain isurim would give out lashes. We see this in some third world countries. But by us, this was actually very masudar. It wasn't. It wasn't like off the cuff. It wasn't like shooting from the hip. It was super clear as to when these things applied. There were just scenarios midrabanan that was the case. So it seems from our Gemara that there's a machlokes between the approach that Rav took, where Rav, based on the Gemara that follows, seems to say that if a person took a razor to the beis hashechi and the beis ha'erva, it's an Isser D'Oraisa. And over here, it seems that at most it would be an Isser D'Rabbanan, machlokes Rav and Rav Yochanan in the Gemara. It's not clearly framed that way, but that is seemingly what the Gemara says. And Ika de Amre, there are some people who bring this version of Rav Yochanan a little bit differently. Top of Nun Tes Amud Aleph. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan, Hamavir beis hashechi beis ha'erva loke. Why is it that we have this case scenario where there's a din d'Oraisa, and now Rav Yochanan is now being quoted as a din d'Oraisa? 2 lines ago, he was quoted as a din d'Rabbanan. Now Rav Yochanan says it's a din d'oraisa. Why? Mishum lo yilbash gever simlas isha. You can't shave your legs because women shave their legs. You're not allowed to do that. And here it's malkos. I meisve, says the Gemara, that's not possible. We already saw this brisa. How can you say that it's going to be malkos? After all, it says that it's only derabanan. Says the Gemara, hu de amar ki haytana. He, Rav Yochanan, who authored this line that there's malkos by removing the hair of the Beis HaShechi and the Beis HaErva, he holds like the following brisa, the Tanya. 5 lines down on Nun Testament Aleph. Hamavir Beis HaShechi Beis HaErva Hareze over Mishum Lo Silbash Gever Simlas Isha. Rav Yochanan Taka does hold that it's a din d'oraisa to remove the hair on one's body, because that is being like a woman, and you're not allowed to be like a woman. So says the Gemara, if that's how the brisa holds, v'tanakama, hai lo yilbash gever, my dorish bey. What does he do with this? Because not everybody agrees with this. We have some who seem to say that it's only derabanan. So what does that brisa do? Says the Gemara, yes, there is an isra of lo yilbash gever simlas isha, but it's not necessarily what you would have thought. Says the Gemara, how do we learn the isra of lo yilbash gever? It's different than the previous shita. The previous shita of Rav Yochanan said that if a person removes hair from the Beis HaShechi and the Beis HaErva, that's going to be an Isser d'oraisa. Here we learn differently. The brisa reads, quarter of the way down, Lo yihi akli gever al isha, that a woman should not have the clay gever. My Talmud Lomar, what does that mean? Im shelo yilbash ish simlas isha. If you want to say the pasuk simply means that a man shouldn't wear women's clothes, v'isha simlas ish, and that a woman shouldn't wear man clothes, that can't be what the Isra of Beged Isha is. That can't be. Beged Isha doesn't simply mean to cross-dress. How do we know? Because look at the next words of the Gemara. Harei kvar nemar toevahi. The pasuk here, if you look at the pasuk inside, I'll read the whole pasuk. A pasuk in Dvarim Kaf Beis. Lo yechli gever al isha v'lo yilbash gever simlas isha. Why? Ki so'avas Hashem elokecha kol oseilah. People who cross-dress, it's a toeva, it's an abomination. Says the Gemara, that's not an abomination in this case. Ve'ein kan toeva. If all a man is doing is wearing women's clothes, or if all that a woman is doing is wearing man's clothes, that's not a toeva. A toeva requires a maisa, an interaction that's asur, not just wearing the clothes. The Gemara is not gores. That's not the isur. Ella, says the Gemara. What is the toeva? What is the toeva of cross-dressing? It's not what you'd think. Ella shelo yilbash ish simlas isha v'yeshev bein hanoshim. The man dresses up like a woman, and why does he do that? So he can go hang out with the women, because he wants to be on the women's side of the mechitza. And ve'isha simlas ish v'teshev bein ha'anashim, and vice versa. A woman who she dresses in such a way where we had this on an NCSY Shabbaton. We had this exact case scenario. Oh, yeah. We had a young girl. She was 15. She wore compressions to minimize her breasts. She wore a button-down shirt. She had a haircut like mine and yours. She had slacks, regular shoes, arm in arm on the men's side, dancing during Havdalah. And most of no, it's not the hachis. No, she was really struggling actually. We worked with her extensively. So, anyways, I'm watching. One of our advisors was there with his arm around her. And he didn't know because she was wearing a kippah. You would never know. You'd never know. So we didn't know what to do. I found out over the course of Shabbos, we were up in Camp Shai. I found out over the course of Shabbos, and it's so uncomfortable. So first of all, she had her arm around an advisor. It's around a kid, Mela. There's an understanding that the kids touch each other. Got it. And that was bad enough. But the advisor was saying, I'm like, that's not right. So I called an emergency advisor meeting in the kitchen. I'm like, I just need all the advisors for a few minutes in the kitchen. But the halachic implications of all of this were nearly impossible to navigate. Even that one thing, if I'm pulling the advisor away, I'm making another boy touch her. Instantly, Mesayel Dvar Avera, or worse. Very, very complicated. So the Gemara says, and I don't mean to speak against mental health, that's a toeva. That's a toeva. If what you're doing is cross-dressing in a way where you can now mingle with the opposite gender unbeknownst to that, that's considered a toeva. Again, no judgments. I'm not just speaking in halachic terms. So these things happen. These things do happen. That's what the Gemara says over here, that we're dealing with this isser.
Is there a difference if it's, like we all were at 13 as kind of like a way to sneak in? Or is it because he really wants to be a woman? Is there not?
I mean, not in Maisa. I mean, I don't think the halachic terminologies would necessarily
No, but it sounds like
change.
the kavana is that, what does it say?
That he wants to be Bein Ha'anoshim.
So
Yeah.
is there an afkamina between what his kavana is?
I mean, we have a principle in Shabbos, Meleches Machsheva Samar Rachman. You have to kind of have intent. I know, but you know,
I think my guess is the Torah, like I can tell you what the Torah looks at. If the Torah envisioned first way.
as the Isser.
Yeah.
For
Yes,
sure.
it was. People are trying to sneak in and get away with it.
Correct. But would you in fact violate the Isser in the case that I just described?
But with the word toeva, you would think bumfaker, because at least in the first scenario, that let's quote unquote normal or normative behavior.
Yeah, but attempting to come to no status.
Yeah, correct. Here, she wants to go through a surgery. I'm assuming.
No, but this normative cases.
Yeah, it's normal human behavior is to
Right.
sneak in.
Right, but you know, your intention is for what is real.
No, but if you're.
Can I ask you a question, even if it's I don't know.
You're still recording.
I know, the mom is just a bit the lip. I just have to be careful, but I think it would be. You're right. Meleches Machshavas is a narrow din. I think it's difficult to say that what happened in the scenario I described wasn't the Isser. It's difficult.
It's not what the Torah was envisioning.
I know,
That's what I wanted to say.
but like if I steal in a way that wasn't the way the Torah envisioned, I still stole. So like I
agree with you.
I'm not sure that we would make chakiras lakan. I don't know. Your question is better than the answer. I don't know. By the way, where does this NCS wire sleep? We slept them in isolation. It was very, very complicated. Big shilas were asked. Very, very, very complicated.
The word toeva, one would think based on the way our
Right,
thought
but I
process
don't
was
think that's-
until like 10 years ago, that really is the toeva when somebody really wants to become the opposite of what they are.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, okay, I got it.
it's very complicated.
Back in a room.
It's very, very complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very complicated. Not pasha. The Gemara continues analyzing this with another sheet in the Tanaim, halfway down on Nun Testament Aleph. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, B'nayin shelo teitze isha b'klei zayin lemilchama, that a woman is not allowed to carry weapons. She's not allowed to carry. I guess the equivalent would be to be packing. You got a 9mm under the belt. So it says the Gemara, Talmud Lomar lo yechli gever al isha. That's what the pasuk says. What about the rest of the pasuk? Lo yilbash gever simlas isha shelo yitakin ish betikuni isha. That a woman's not allowed to wear weapons like a man, and a man is not allowed to do certain behaviors like a woman, namely shave your legs, shave your arms. Those things are not allowed. Those things are not allowed. With what?
This whole concept of man not shaving his armpits, right? I mean, sort of, it's falling off, right?
What's that? It's a unique din in it. It's the Chiddush and Chumash.
Just like shaving his entire head.
Yeah, so it's also the whole thing is a Chiddush.
It's a kid, it's a unique concept. Yeah, it's a complete kid.
Yeah. First of all, we're from Jews. Like sometimes you see the haircut where the person's sideburns are like they're straightened out here, and you're like, oh, it's you're like, yeah, it's a shit, And the Mitzvah, meanwhile, is like taking his razor, getting the mic. He's getting his Michael Jordan haircut, like razored all the way back, But that's a Chiddush and Chumash. The source of what?
Where the woman can't bear weapons.
That's what the Gemara says here in the middle of Nun Testament Aleph. The Gemara says, "Minayin shelo teitze isha b'chli zayin lemilchama," that a woman cannot use the utensils that are used for war.
And it says, but what does it say?
Talmud Lomar lo yechli gever al isha. That is the pasuk in Dvarim 22:8. Dvarim 22:5. Dvarim Kaf Beis pasuk Hey. Okay, Amar Rav Nachman, he says ben Nazir mutter. A Nazir who's not like a Metzorah. A Nazir only has a din of shaving his head. And he extends the din of Nazir to the rest of the body. Chiddush, says the Gemara, why? Just because you have a pasuk that allows you to override lo sakifu pa'as roshchem because you're a Nazir doesn't mean you could violate lo begerisha. That's not even logical. Again, Rob, I don't mean to denigrate, but
only Bakh's margins and the below Sakif, you probably get margins.
Well, there's no lo sakifu by a Nazir, but it's
Right.
yeah,
Looks like-
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Something-
Okay. And then someone was in the mikvah, they saw Rav Yochanan changing, and they noticed Amru le Rabban on the Reb Shimon bar Abba, Chazina le Rav Yochanan de Lesle. We saw that Rav Yochanan has no armpit hair. He said, what is he doing? How can he do that? The pasuk says it's Malkos. Two versions of Rav Yochanan, is it the Rabbanan, is it the Oraisa? But Rav Yochanan himself was the author, and he had no armpit hair. So says the Gemara, Amar Lahon Machma Zikno Nishru. You guys, he's an old man. The hair fell out. He's not shaving. He's not shaving his armpits. There was a man, Haudi, Chayev Negida Kame de Ravami. There was a man who was Chayev Malkos, get some type of Malkos in front of Ravami. And Igloi, when they took off his shirt, Igloi Beis HaShechi, and when they took off his shirt, he put up his arms, they took off his shirt, and they saw that Chazieh, the Lo Megalech, that he hadn't shaved his armpits. They saw that he had hair. Says the Gemara, Omar Lahon Rabbi Ami, Shivkuha, leave him alone, don't give him Malkos. Dain min Chavrayahu. This man is one of the Chevra. He's a frum guy. What does that teach you about the culture? There's a subculture, or the culture was to shave your armpits. But when they saw that this guy was taka, by Rav Yochanan, they expected it. But by this guy who's getting Malkos, he's not such a tzaddik. By him, they expected it to be, you're the shaggest guy. Okay, you're for sure. And no, he's frum. He's frum. He doesn't shave his armpits. So that kind of teaches us backhandedly. We're making inferences that's how they assumed that was the case. That he, okay. Lamaisa, let's get into psak. Bamine Rav me Rabbi Chia ma'u legalech. What's the din of shaving? Amar lo aser, you cannot shave your body. Amar le v'hakagadal. Sometimes hair grows in a way that's uncomfortable and it's a bothersome. Amar le bar pachte. It's a reference. You're the wise one. Zman yeshlo. Hair, all hair has its time. Kol zman shu gadal no share. Whenever hair grows to its maximum, then no share, then it falls out. Bamine Rav me Rabbi Chia ma'u lachuch. What about scratching hair with the ulterior motive of removing the hair? So says the Gemara, that's not allowed. Big domahu, what if a person is scratching their armpit through their clothes with an effort to remove hair? Says the Gemara mutter. Fine, because it's removed, it's not direct, it's indirect, you don't actually know when the hair comes out. I don't know, a whole host of possibilities. Not on your head. We're not talking about on your head. We're talking about other body hair. Beis HaShechi and Beis HaErva. Armpit hair and pubic hair. There are those who ask this question a little differently. What about in davening when you're trying to remove hair through your clothes? We know that in general, when a person is davening, if they touch a part of their body that's typically covered, they then have to go wash their hands again. Netilas Yadayim, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Seirugin without a bracha. Because you touched a part of your body that's covered. I remember I was once, maybe twice in my life, daven shachris in the mirror. I think once. I was with Chanuch Teller. I don't even remember what the scenario was. We were davening shachris together. And I walked in and there was a guy putting on tefillin. He had wax paper separating his hands from his hair because your hair is typically covered. And he didn't want to have to go. I've never seen such a chumrah otherwise. Have anyone ever seen that? I've never seen that in my life. He didn't want to touch his hair because if you scratch your head significantly under your kippah, you maybe have to go wash your hands. He was makbid that he would. I've never seen anything like it. Fascinating. Literally don't know where we are. Oh, here we are. So that's what the Gemara says. That really maybe the question was, during davening, can you scratch your armpit to remove hair during davening? Amalei aser. He says it's aser, but we don't paskin that way. A person is allowed to scratch that part of their body, even if hairs do fall out, because it's you're out davening. Your concern is only a concern of touching that which is uncovered, that which is supposed to be covered. So that doesn't apply here. Pasha. Unless it's davar shein miskaven. If there's an itch and you're scratching, you don't intend on. It's possible that's mutter. That's mutter. But sometimes, like people fidget and they play with their beard and they really are pulling hair out. That's usher. There you have to catch yourself. Or people who bite their nails a lot. That's got to be careful. Yeah, I'd say that one of the hardest things to do is people who have like little pieces of skin on their lip and they like fold their lip, and very, very, very difficult. Very difficult. Separates the men from the boys. That's extremely difficult because it's like you're not even thinking. It's like totally just in your wiring in your brain. It's just happening. Okay, top of Nun Testament Beis, the Gemara says we had previously spoken about. Remember our case? We had 2 Nazirim. This was our last Mishnah, and one of them was Tameh, but we didn't know which one. So it was a Safek Tuma. Now we're adding another factor in the case. Reuven and Shimon. One of them well, someone was tamei. We just don't know who's safek tuma. And our Mishnah adds a layer meis echad mehen. So now we have Reuven and Shimon, and the way we solve the Reuven and Shimon problem is that they both brought korbanos, and they said if I'm the tahor one, then the one this time. Okay, here says the Gemara, well, Shimon died, so now we only have Reuven left, and Reuven's by himself safek tuma. So says the Gemara, what do we do? So safek tuma and his partner in crime that he was going to split korbanos with, he can't do that anymore. So says the Gemara, Meis echad mehen amar Rabbi Yoshua yevakesh echad min hashuk sheyidor kenegdo benazir. Oh my. Says the Gemara, go find a friend and say, listen, do you mind becoming a Nazir? We'll soon see for 60 days. Do you mind becoming a Nazir for 60 days? I'm kind of stuck. So says the Gemara, how would this work out? So Reuven would say to not Shimon, Shimon died. He goes into the shuk, he finds Chaim. Reuven says to Chaim, V'omer, im tamei hayisi. If in fact I was the tamei one, then hareata Nazir miyad. Then you'd be a Nazir for the first month. Im tahor hayisi, if in fact I was tahor, then hareata nazir achar shloshim yom. Then you'll be a nazir in 30 days, for 30 days. So it's a big ask. You're asking someone to become a nazir for 60 days just to get you out of a pickle. That's not so simple. This so from shloshim umeviin korban tuma v'korban tara. What?
Yeah, pay the guy.
No. They'll probably
I
never
would want some money up front.
I would want a lot of money up front. Just I get haircuts every 3 weeks. I'm not waiting 60 days. That's not happening. Also, is there like a moel dispensation when you're a Nazir? No, there isn't. I'm just kidding. Man, that doesn't look good when you have like, ponytail hair as a moel. It's not. I don't.
That's true.
Very true. You couldn't drink the wine either. Wow. Okay. Okay. So this is. Let's continue with this really abnormal solution to a problem. The so from Shloshim Yom, they count Mevi Korban Tuma Korban Tara, and then on day 30 of this unique deal, they bring Korbanos Tuma and Korbanos Tara. How does this work? V'omer imanihu hatame. He says when they bring the first set of Korbanos on day 30 at the conclusion of the first Nazirus, if really I was Tamei, then Korban Tuma Shali. Because I'm Tamei, this is then going to be my Korban Tuma. The Korban Tara Shalach, and you finished your Nazirus, great job, thank you very much. But Ve'imanihu HaTahor, if in fact I was Tahor, then Korban Tara Shali Korban Tuma B'Safek. You never were Tamei, you did this Nazirus out of the goodness of your heart, so therefore your Korban is not actually going to help you. It's a Tuma that's a Korban Tuma that will be brought B'Safek. Now, that's only up to day 30. And then V'sofrin, another Shloshim Yomim Mevi'in Korban Tara. Then at the end, they bring one more Korban. And what is the rationale? But Omer, he says as follows. Imani Tamei Korban Tuma Shali. If I'm Tamei, if I really was Tamei this second month, then the Korban Tuma that was brought earlier was mine. The Korban Tara Shalach, and the Korban Tara was yours. V'zeh Korban Tarasi. The Korbanos last month were split as they were, and this is my Korban Tara. V'imanihu HaTahor. If in fact I was the one that was Tahor, so says the Gemara, Korban Tara Shali v'Korban Tuma B'Safek, v'zehu Korban Tarascha. The Korban Tara that was brought is going to be mine. The Korban Tuma that we had was going to be B'Safek because you were never actually Tamei. V'zeh Korban Tarascha, and then this would be for you to become Tahor at the end of your Nazirus. So convoluted, difficult to find someone. We try to find people for the 8:30 minyan. It's hard enough. Could you put up a sign on the corner? Yes, anyone into a 60-day.
Not here.
Yeah, anyone into a 60-day Nazirus to help me get out of my Safek Tuma. So Ben Zoma is not putting up with this. Amar lo Ben Zoma, really? Umisho me'alo sheyodor kenegdo b'nazir. I don't care what kind of friends you have. That's not normal. It's not normal. It also engages a question that we've seen a couple of times throughout the Maseches: is it an isser to become a Nazir? Is it a chet to become a Nazir? So this seems to imply that either we hold like the Shita that it's not a chet to be a Nazir, or that under extenuating circumstances you can drag someone along. Very difficult to say that. Either way, Ben Zoma is not hearing it, and therefore he gives a much more simple, practical solution. He says, what he'll do is he'll bring two animals. He'll bring a chatas ha'of and he'll bring an animal. The chatas. What was the case? He's Safek Tuma. It's at the end of 30 days. He has to finish the 30 days. Yeah, he has to finish the 30 days. And then at that point, he says, he brings these two korbanos. because it doesn't make sense for him to not bring the korbanos, because if he has to, no matter what, he's a suffix tuma, he has to finish the first round of Nazirus either way. And the rationale is im tameh hayisi, if during those first 30 days I was tameh, hachatas mechovasi, the chatas that I'm bringing is for my having become tameh, v'ha'ola nadava, and the ola I'll just give as a nadava. And im tahor hayisi, if in fact I really was not tameh during that time, because remember our case, we have one man standing and it's a suffix mace, suffix tumas mace when he's a nazir. So he says, if in fact I wasn't the one who was tameh, really Shimon who died was the one who was tameh. Ha'ola mechovasi, the ola is for my nazirus, because Nazirus has to bring an ola, among other korbanos. And then he counts another 30 days. Maybe korban tara v'omer. He brings korbanos on day 60. And what does he say then? He says, Im tameh hayisi, if really I was just tameh, ha'ola rishon and nadava, then the first ola was a nadava, v'zu chova, v'im tahor hayisi ha'ola rishon chova v'zu nadava, v'zu sha'ar korbani. And if in fact he was tahor, then the ola counts as the chova. The ola on day 30 counts. And today on day 60, I'll bring the rest of my korbanos, the chatas and the shlamim that are brought for the nazirus. Amar Rabbi Yeshua, seemingly he's raising a concern here. The Gemara will question this in a moment. Rabbi Yeshua says, if this is true, then as a nazir, you brought some of your korbanos on day 30 and some of your korbanos on day 60. You brought your ola on day 30. And as it turned out, according to one part of the rationale, you really were a tahor for the first 30 days, which means your ola was for the nazirus, which is good. You check a box for your korban. So says the Gemara, if that's true, Amar Rabbi Yoshua, the Mishnah says, we're 3 lines before the Gemara begins, and 2/3 of the way down, he says, Nimta zeh maybe korbanos of lachatzayin. You split up the timing with which you brought your korbanos for nazirus. Gemara doesn't say what the problem is. The Gemara just mentions it, and we'll question it soon. Thankfully, the Chachamim were of the opinion that Ben Zoma's approach to the suffix tameh nazir was to do what Ben Zoma said, which is to make iterations of korbanos. Instead of finding another Jew and saying, please, please, we need a 10th guy. It's really not a 10th guy. I need you for 60 days to not get a haircut, not become tameh mixed. Says the Gemara Velesi, I don't understand. What's the problem with Rabbi Yeshua? Why can't you just bring them at different times? Who cares if the ola was on day 30 and the other korbanos were on day 60? You have to bring korbanos. That's not like korbanos that come in a rigid time frame. You have to bring them after your nazirus. So says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Marshmuel, Lo Amar Rabbi Yeshua Elo Lechade Ba'as HaTalmidim. Says, don't worry. He was just raising the question to see if everyone was paying attention. Oh, wait 1 second. Bachrim, listen up. The ola was brought on day 30. The rest of the korbanos on day 60. Was that kosher? And the kids will say, yeah, it was fine. Good job. You're listening. It was a question to tease out a response from the room. Amar Rav Nachman, Maile Avid Le Rabbi Yoshua, Ledake de lo Lisru. What will Rabbi Yoshua do in order to ensure that the fats of the korbanos won't spoil by the time everybody gets haircuts? All the korbanos are so spread out. The Gemara doesn't even answer the question, but it's a good question. Because some of the animal parts had to be taken care of properly, but you had one from 30 days ago and one from today. It's not, the logistics are difficult. Okay, next Mishnah, and in fact, we've learned this Mishnah already. The Gemara does move quickly. If I'm being totally honest, this Gemara needs about 10 hours to really lay out in chart form, but we're not going to do that. So please see the Rashis on the Rivan, actually, on the previous Gemara where this was quoted. We saw this on Daf Nun Hey. We saw it on Nun Zayin and not Nun Zayin in another iteration. Here we're seeing it yet again. What was our case? We were talking about the Nazir who had a very bad day. Nazir Shahaya Tameh B'Safik Umuchlat B'Safik. This Nazir was a regular Nazir Vadai, and then he had 2 sveikos thrust upon him. One was Safik Tumas Meis, a Safik of Tumas Meis, and the other was a Safik Mitzora. He found a lesion, and we don't know what the story is. So this is not good. But you have to think about what's going on in this guy's head. I'm a Nazir, and I'm a potential Mitzora, and I am a potential Tameh Meis. Very complicated. So the Gemara says in that case, there are 2 levels of the halachic healing process. Ochel b'kodshim achar shishim yom. Once you're at the 60-day mark, you're good for kodshim. No problem. However, when it comes to b'shosa yayin mutam mesim, because of your nazirus, that's achar mea ve'esrim yom. Now, we spoke about this then, that when you stack up, I should say, all of the different iterations of what's happening, here's what they look like. I am a Nazir. I might be a Tameh Meis and I might be a Mitzora. That's one. Here's another one. I'm a Nazir. I actually am a Mitzorah, but I'm a Safek Tamei Meis, or I'm all three of them. Vadai. We just don't know because there's elements of Safek, but we have to factor in all of the iterations and all the permutations to make sure that we're checking off all of our halachic boxes. And when you do all of the math here, what you'll find is what the Mishnah says is that it takes 120 days. Namely, when you have a Nazir who's a Safek Mitzorah, Safek Tumas Meis, the only way you can drink wine is by waiting 120 days, 4 cycles of Nazirus. Because the first 3 don't count because you might have been a Mitzorah the whole way through. And you might have been Tamei Meis the whole way through. So therefore, only the 4th one counts. Not simple. That's what the Gemara says. And the Mishnah says as well, concluding the Mishnah on the bottom of Nuntes Amud Aleph, Shetiglachas hanega, the tiglachas, the haircut of the nega, docha tiglachas anazir bisman shu vadai. I could understand, says the Mishnah, that a Mitzorah who's a Mitzorah vadai can get a haircut during Nazirus. I got you, no problem. But a Mitzorah can't get a haircut during the first 30 days because while the Nazir is a Vadai status, but the Mitzorah is only a Safek. And therefore, says the Gemara, it's not right. But when you have a Safek Mitzorah, the first 30 days are down for the count. And the Mishnah is actually just, it's like rolling a snowball that will grow. He's given the first push. This is why you can't get a haircut in the first 30 days as a Mitzorah, because you can't get one in the second 30 days because it's Safek Tumas Meis. So there's so many different permutations here that you end up having to wait 60 to eat kachim and 120 for Nazirus. Tana, when do we talk about this ratio of this Safek being a 1-to-4 ratio where your 1 Nazirus is multiplied by 4? What is this Mishnah talking about? Samech Amud Aleph will be going until 4 lines from the bottom of the page. Tana, the Brisa writes, Bamed Dvar Mamur ben Nazirus Mu'etes. When do we say that it turns into 120 days, 4 Nazirios? That's only true in a case scenario of a Nazirus of 30 days. However, al bin Nazirus bas shana, if what you accepted upon yourself is a Nazirus of 1 year, the math equation is still the same. You multiply by 4. So what we do is simple math. We're just changing the numbers a little bit, but it's equal multipliers. And what we're saying is that your 1-to-4 ratio that applies by a Nazirus Mu'etes of 30 days, turning the 30 into 120, does the same thing by a Nazirus Meruba of 1 year, turning the 1 year multiplied by 4, as we did with the 30 to get to 120. 1 year times 4 is 4 years. Very, very long time. Very long time. And the Tani Allah, we have another brisa as a corollary to this Mishnah. What does it say? Umegaleach arba tiglachios, 4 haircuts. And each of these haircuts are accompanied by a certain set of korbanos in order to offset all of the permutations that we discussed in our Mishnah. And here's how it works. Tiglachas Rishona is on day 30. You can't do anything during Nazirus because everything else is a suffix against the Nazirus, so you can't do anything. Therefore, on that last day, maybe Tziporim olas behema. We bring all 3. You might be ending your Tuma status, you might be ending your Naziros, you might be ending your Mitzorah, a whole host of things are going on. Shnia, the second haircut's on day 60, and then maybe Chatas Ova Olas Behema. Shlishis, the third haircut is on day 90, and there maybe Chatas Ova Olas Behema, same as week 2, same as month 2. And Revis, the last of the haircuts, which is on day 20, you only have to do one thing. That last month is at a maximum only about Nazirus, and therefore maybe Korban Tara, you bring the Korbanos of a successful Nazirus. It says the Gemara, let's analyze a little bit. We're only going to analyze the first haircut, and then we're going to have to stop. But the Gemara says as follows. Amris, you said in the Brisa, Tiglachas Rishona, that in the first haircut, you have to bring a certain set of korbanos. We said you bring maybe Tziporim Chatas Ofen Olas Behema. Says the Gemara, Mimanav Shach Shapir Kamaisi. You did good. You checked all your boxes here for permutation number 1. Had it been that in addition to your Nazirus, you actually were a Mitzorah, but you were only a Safek Tuma, then Tziporin Chovaso, you brought the birds, which was great for the Mitzorah. V'chatas ha'of safek ata l'kfura. We have a special din by a chatas ha'of, by a bird that's meant for a chatas. You can shecht it and it'll just get buried. And v'ola havya nadava, very good. Ulegalcho, this should be besof shiva. And you can't say that you're going to get a haircut after 7 days. You can't say that you're able to get a haircut after 7 days because maybe you're not actually a Mitzorah and you can't violate your Nazirus for a suffix. Berachmana Amar, in regards to a Nazir, Tar lo yavor al rosho ad melos. And v'ilav Mitzorah v'adai have v'hutame. And if in fact the Nazir had no Mitzorah status, but he did have tumas meis, then chatas of chova. So then the chatas of checks the box of his tuma status. Vitziporin avroi kamis abdin, says the Gemara. Then we need to know when birds are brought outside of the Beis Hamikdash, no problem. V'lo have chulin ba'azara. That's not going to be a problem at all. Do the bird somewhere else. And ve'olas behema havya nadava, because an ola can always be a nadava. And let's say that really the iteration was v'ilav mitzorahu vilav tamehu. Let's say really you were only a Nazir, you were not a mitzora, and you were not a tameh. So says the Gemara, tzipor navroi kamis abdin, no problem. You can do the birds, that won't be a problem. Chatas of lekfura, because we have a special din by chatas of by birds that they can be buried. And olas behema yichovaso, that taka was your only status, and then you've checked all the boxes there. Says the Gemara, well, you almost checked all the boxes. Because what about the Habay Asham? We know that you're supposed to bring an Asham after your Nazirus. Says the Gemara, that's Rishimini Damar Maisi Umaste, that you're allowed to bring the Asham and make a condition, and that would then check off that box as well. We're going to stop right here at Tiklach HaShniya. We are in the middle of a sugya. We'll come back together on Shabbos at 5:53. Wishing you all a beautiful night.